It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. It is those who know little, not those who know much, who so positively assert that this or that problem will never be solved by science. A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. The love for all living creatures is the most noble attribute of man. To kill an error is as good a service as, and sometimes even better than, the establishing of a new truth or fact. I love fools' experiments. I am always making them. The mystery of the beginning of all things is insoluble by us, and I for one must be content to remain an agnostic. It is not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can best manage change. The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. An American monkey, after getting drunk on brandy, would never touch it again, and thus is much wiser than most men. If the misery of the poor be caused not by the laws of nature, but by our institutions, great is our sin. I have called this principle by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved, by the term of natural selection. Man tends to increase at a greater rate than his means of subsistence. The very essence of instinct is that it's followed independently of reason. A scientific man ought to have no wishes, no affections, a mere heart of stone. I am turned into a sort of machine for observing facts and grinding out conclusions. Great is the power of steady misrepresentation. The more I study nature, the more I stand amazed at the work of the Creator. I am not apt to follow blindly the lead of other men. I am not apt to take much on trust. We can allow satellites, planets, suns, universe, nay, whole systems of universes to be governed by laws, but the smallest insect we wish to be created at once by special act. The very essence of instinct is that it's followed independently of reason. The love for all living creatures is the most noble attribute of man. In the long history of humankind and animal kind, to those who learned to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. I cannot persuade myself that a beneficent and omnipotent God would have designedly created parasitic wasps with the express intention of their feeding within the living bodies of caterpillars. A scientific man ought to have no wishes, no affections, a mere heart of stone. I feel most deeply that this whole question of creation is too profound for human intellect. Man in his arrogance thinks himself a great work, worthy of the interposition of a deity more humble, and I believe truer, to consider him created from animals. I see no good reasons why the views given in this volume should shock the religious views of anyone. Animals whom we have made our slaves, we do not like to consider our equal. False facts are highly injurious to the progress of science, for they often endure long, but false views, if supported by some evidence, do little harm, for everyone takes a salutary pleasure in proving their falseness. The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is, at bottom, no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. I am not apt to follow blindly the lead of other men. We must, however, acknowledge, as it seems to me, that man with all his noble qualities still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. How paramount the future is to the present when one is surrounded by children. If the misery of the poor be caused not by the laws of nature, but by our institutions, great is our sin. In the struggle for survival, the fittest win out at the expense of their rivals because they succeed in adapting themselves best to their environment. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed, which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. I love fools' experiments. I am always making them. I am turned into a sort of machine for observing facts and grinding out conclusions.